That's readable. Great. Okay. So the next agent is going to be coming out in 6 days, most likely, when the battle pass is done, because we'll be going to Act 2. And from the sound of it, they want to release a new agent every act, and then a new map every episode, I think is what they were saying. Or at least one agent every episode, and one map every episode. I don't really remember, but their goal is to do a lot of agents per no, yeah, that makes sense because they want to do 6 agents a year, so one agent per act and one map per episode. So 2 maps a year and then 6 agents a year. That's their goal, which I think is kind of unrealistic, but okay. So Killjoy is the next one on the table. The last newest agent that came out was Reyna, so let's think about Reyna before we move on to discussing Killjoy. Reyna is a duelist. But she has unique things in her kit that enable her to be a unique agent in the style of an FPS. She has a self-sustaining heal with an overheal, uh, probably the strongest part of her kit at the moment. She's not very good above like low diamond, and once you get to like immortal, she can be played around, but she can still be really good when she gets rolling. Her ultimate, obviously very good, gives her a stim beacon, heals immediately, goes invisible when she first came out. I thought that that was broken, but she actually has really good sound cues, so there's ways to play around it, and her lag between her pulling out her gun and coming out of invisibility or her invulnerability are very good. It's easy to play around if you have good positioning. Her invulnerability is a unique aspect. You know, she can choose either heal if she feels safe or use her E to get a pick and then quickly get away. Um, and then her flash is really good because it doesn't blind your teammates, but it's really finicky. Like it can be right above your head, and I feel like it doesn't flash you. So that part of her kit is a little weird for me. But however, besides the point, she's a very unique agent, a duelist. So there, I think there's more duelists in the game than any other character because you have 2 Sentinels, you have Omen and Breach, and then you have Phoenix, Omen, Breach, and or Omen, Brim, and Viper. Then you have Jet, Phoenix, Raze. Yeah, so 4 duelists. And so this is actually going to be most likely a Sentinel. However, I think with their kit, they might be more classified as a duelist, but they're definitely. It looks like they're being pushed towards the Sentinel side of the game. So we're going to actually go backwards because the video that is attached to this Reddit thread goes backwards. So we'll start with the ultimate. So you'll have to so according to the thread, these like descriptions are were exactly what the file name like in the files for this character. This is exactly how it was. So no editing. So it's assuming they got this from a web page that leaked. So I'm assuming that Valorant's gonna have a web page where it's like written from the perspective of Killjoy. So I'm going to reword it, but this is what it is verbatim. So it has a long wind-up time, essentially, and it detains all enemies caught in the radiance for about 8 seconds. It can be destroyed while it's winding up, but obviously, she built plenty more so she can just build her ult back up again. So the wording on this one is really interesting. A couple people I think are taking it literally. And if it is actually how some people believe it to be, this ability is ridiculously strong. So we'll go ahead and pull up the video now. Just want to make sure the video is going. Okay. So here it is. Killjoy essentially winds it up, and you see this huge radius like pulsating out. It goes, for reference, this is like the beginning of Market. It goes all the way to this like fountain in the middle. Okay, so it winds up, winds up, winds up, and it's about 8 seconds of it doing this animation, which is visually very good. And then it explodes, and you'll notice immediately Phoenix loses the ability to have his gun out. He has his gun out right before it goes off, and then explodes, and the gun's not out, and you see they slowly move. And so the idea I believe this is that um, after it explodes, if you're in the radius, you don't have the ability to do anything but move and very slowly. So it's sort of like a breach stun, but instead of being able to shoot with it, you can't do anything and you can't use abilities. So let's go ahead and see how long this lasts. So it explodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, 8 seconds of being disabled. The way that this sounds to me is in the League of Legends world, because Riot obviously designs League and Valorant, so they're gonna have kind of similar ideas on how to make champions and what champion abilities can do. This is like a silence. You can't use abilities. Um, you know, with a silence you can auto attack in League of Legends, but in this it's sort of like a suppression in League of Legends, but you can move. If you couldn't move, that would be ridiculous. Um, Still, I think this ability is very strong. The radius is huge. So a lot of people believe that you can't move out of this radius. Like as soon as this thing goes down, the detained means that you are stuck in this little field, which could be the case as you see like in the background by these by the fountain. It sort of looks like it's making a wall. Same thing over here. It's like these triangle things. So if that's the case, I think that that's really broken, like unnecessarily strong. Because if you push into anywhere and a Killjoy just drops their ability, now you're stuck in that area, right? And so the counterplay is, oh, we'll just kill it. Um, but let's say Killjoy drops it and then uses some of their other abilities, which we'll get into, or the team kind of swarms into that location. You might not have or like throw slows or sentinel, like sage walls or whatever. You could, if you can't leave the radius, if they put it down and you're inside of it, it means that like there's not a lot of counterplay, especially if you put it down and it's behind multiple walls, in a corner somewhere. So I don't know. We don't really know if it goes through walls and then hits other areas. It might be it's only like open space. And if that's the case, then like there's not that many places that you can hide it. However, you can still protect it with other abilities, and I think that kind of makes it really difficult to play around. And in addition to that, if you know that Killjoy has an ability like that ultimate and you are stuck inside of it, if you are, like in the radius or whatever, that means that you have to play so carefully and slow. Be like it basically makes it so that you don't know where it's gonna be. Because some of the abilities later on, we'll get into it, but you don't know where Killjoy is gonna be, and this ultimate could just like hard prevent you from going somewhere for 8 seconds if you can't leave. I'm under the impression that the detain thing just is like the effect of the ultimate after it explodes. So I'm pretty sure that like I believe you'll be able to leave the radius, which still means that when the ult goes down, you have to like back up out of where you were. So it's a information tool because you'll hear it because you can't really walk through it. I mean, it is slow, but you'll want to get out as fast as possible. And it's an area denial, a massive area denial. It's like a giant sage slow, or a giant cipher cage. Um, and you'll notice I'm comparing the two because I think their utility is um, kind of similar in a sense. Um, However, this character is unique in a multitude of other ways. Um, my main concern is that you won't be able to see the radius, like as the enemy. So if you're playing against a Killjoy and the Killjoy drops their ultimate turret thingy, my concern is that you won't be able to see where the radius is. So you'll just have to back up from everywhere. Unless it makes like a super loud noise when it's starting, which could be the case. There is volume, so I can. So like this noise is kind of loud, but I don't know how audible it is for the enemies, right? Because we're right next to it and we're on the team where the Killjoy is. So it could be loud, it could be quiet. So maybe the audio tells you, oh, if you hear it really close to you, you need to back up. But it's still like I have to back up if I hear the noise or I hear the ult go down. If I can't see the radius, I'll have to back up no matter where I am because I don't know if I'm going to be in the radius and hit by it. I also don't know if you're like just outside the radius if it'll hit you, like if it's kind of like the breach stun where if you're kind of by the radius of the stun, the E, it'll hit you. Um, so I think this ability could be very good. However, if it's there are a lot of things about it that concern me. Um, because this kind of area denial is massive, number one. Number two, this ultimate better be like a 7 point ult. Which I don't think will be hard to get with this character, and we'll go into that later. Um, but yeah, I just hope that there's a lot of counterplay to this ult because obviously the ult is very good. If you get hit by it, you should be punished because it has such a long wind up time. But it's so good that there should be like ways to play around it. So hopefully you're not number one stuck in the radius if they put it down and it activates. I hope you're able to run out of it. Number two, I hope you can see the radius so that you know like what areas you need to be away from because maybe it doesn't hit, but it still denies areas for 8 seconds. And number three, I hope that like it if you do find it, it's easy to kill because you can destroy it. So I hope it's not like you need to like a sage wall back in beta where you had to have like 5 people shooting at it with a you know with rifles to get it to go away. Like obviously I don't think it'll be like that, but we don't know. So those are my hopes. I don't think it'll be like that, but we don't know what it'll be like. So that's the ultimate. Um, so very unique character. If you get hit by it, it can shut down an entire round. I think that that's pretty good, but I just hope that it's on a very long or it has a lot of ult points required to get it, which I think it will because it's this character is similar to Cypher and Sage. So I believe it'll be more of a Sentinel character. Okay, so the next ability is Nano Swarm. Basically, it's a grenade, but you throw it down it goes quiet, which I believe they're implying that it goes invisible, and then you activate it and it's a huge AoE damage. That honestly it looks like it does a lot of damage. So we'll go to the video here. It's after the ult. So again, 8 seconds of being disabled. So here it is. So he throws it on the ground. It looks like if you oh, the play button is blocking it. So it looks like it goes invisible, and then it pops up with a little like warning symbol you'll see. Um, so you can put it down anywhere um, on the ground, which I think if it's invisible is kind of difficult to deal with. I don't know if you can destroy it. I don't know if it's sort of visible like a Cypher cam. Like, are we gonna have to start pre-firing the ground in order to get rid of it? I don't know. Um, However, you then activate it and it deals huge AoE damage, and obviously that Sova dies. Now, my question is, does this enemy have armor? Because if this is an unarmored enemy that's dealing all this damage, I just... that's a lot of damage really fast. And because it's invisible, if you can put it down at the start of the round, like a Cypher trap or something like that, imagine if you're trying to push into a site and you have that, Cypher cam, tripwires, and a trap. You can't go there. You have to like, and they're good players, they will just wait for you to execute, put up their, you know, cage. If you're in it, you'll die. Or they just stall until everybody rotates so you're out of time to go anywhere else, so you have to go into the site that they're trying to go into. And we don't know how much, like, is this character armored? Because if this character's armored, it's doing a lot of damage very fast. And if it's not, it's still a lot of damage, but um, it makes sense. But I'm just thinking about this on like pistol rounds, very difficult to deal with. It's a huge AoE ability. Like, look at how large it is. How fast that character dies, right? Like, ridiculous. So again, I don't know if they're armored. If they're unarmored and they're taking that much damage, it's still pretty good. But um, we don't really know. Does it actually go invisible? Because if it goes invisible, that's kind of broken. Like you don't know where it can be. If it is invisible, can you see it? And can it be destroyed? Um, because then you could try and break it with shock darts, which would have some level of outplay to it, which I think would be good. Another valuable um, Sova dart usage. Get some water. Um, but if it's like completely invisible, can't be destroyed, you can't see it, it's that's really strong. It's really strong area denial, and Riot has to be really careful with that because it means that there's so many damaging mollies and abilities now with Rays and even with Viper Poison and mollies and um, you know all of Raze's kit, um, that it sort of makes it you're gonna need more healing and sustain, or you're gonna need characters that can get rid of that utility before it goes off. And so far, only Sova is really good at doing that, unless like a Raze bot can trigger on this thing, kind of like how it destroys Cypher tripwires. Um, but again, we don't know. Um, because yeah, if you can set it up at the beginning of a round, like a cipher trip or trap, and then just leave, and then your cipher has a camera and tells you when you need to like go off. Like that's ridiculous. It basically just makes cipher better. Um, okay, so I'm concerned about this ability. However, Molly's, this is probably the least controversial ability in my opinion. Um, it sucks that there's a lot of these area denials, and I think the reason why they're doing it is because on attack you can throw it into corners and it can clear either one corner or multiple because of how wide the radius is. And they're obviously doing that because people have complained about 50-50 corners, and their response was that if you have intel gathering characters, like Boombot or Sovadart, drone, camera, um, those types of abilities, it makes those that's the type of abilities you should be using to clear those corners, but not everybody plays intel gathering characters like that. So I think that they're trying to make more mollies to clear those kinds of corners in case team comps don't have, a Cypher or a Sova or whatever. Sort of balance out those corners a bit more, which I don't know if that's the right way to go about it, but that's just my opinion. Okay, turret. So this I think is the most controversial ability. Um, when you're dealing with a first-person shooter and you're adding turrets to the game becomes less interactive, number one, and number two, more of like a MOBA, like TF Fortress 2 or Overwatch is a perfect example of, Torbjorn, he can put down a turret. It's something that you have to deal with. Sure, it doesn't do that much damage, but if you look up Torbjorn clips or whatever, even in pro play, there are Torbjorns who put their turret down, the Torbjorn will die, and then throughout the fight, they're fighting, all these other high priority targets, taking aim duels or whatever. So imagine in the context of Valorant, a pro puts down a turret, they're fighting, they die, all the other players are taking aim duels, trading off each other, dropping util, and then the turret's just shooting still, and then like racks of 1, 2, 3, I don't know, kills. Like it's the idea that it's a possibility that it can happen that makes it worrisome. It's not that it could ever happen, but also think about it this way: you're in a 1v1 scenario, you have 10 health, the other enemy also has 10 health, the Killjoy, obviously on the other team. You go to a bomb site. If the turret is there, like it could kill you. If you're, if it's in a cheese spot or you're low on time, and it's like, oh well, you deserve to lose that round. You weren't checking for it, blah blah blah. But it just means that there's like not a lot of outplay potential, and one ability shouldn't like change the way the speed of the game, the outcome of the game when there's like no interaction, like you put at the beginning of the round. That shouldn't secure the round, is what I'm trying to say. Unless it's like an ultimate ability or something like that, because then it would make sense. It's your ultimate ability, you're using it to get a big advantage, right? So, anyways, you deploy a turret and it fires at enemies within a 180-degree cone. So if you draw a line through the turret, it can shoot everything on that side of the turret. It won't shoot behind it, but it can shoot everything in front of it. So again, like, not that that really matters, because if someone comes behind it, like, it's very rare that you'll probably get behind this thing. Um, uh, However, you can recall the turret, and so it seems like you can recall it from anywhere. Because it's hold equipped to recall the deployed turret, which is concerning. Because if you can be on like you put it down, like I'm thinking on split, like you have Cypher and Killjoy set up on B, then they go look mid and A, and then Killjoy's on A, and you can just recall it and then put it down on A. It's a little weird. Um, so we'll watch the video of it. Here it is right here. Sets it up, deploys it, has a bit of a wind up time, which I think is good. Means that if you put it down in like a panic, it can be killed before it activates. Here it is right now. It shoots 3 bursts, and then it goes into like a stasis, and then you recall it. So again, I don't know if you need to have line of sight of it in order to recall it. However, I do know this. Number 1, it shoots 3-round bursts. It does it twice, and then he shoots him 3 times with the classic, and then kills the jet. Which means that if it's an unarmored opponent, it did... Oh, what is that? It's like... I want to say 90? I don't remember. I play with armor so much on pistol rounds, I don't remember. It might be like 67 damage. If it's unarmored. If it's armored, that means that... Oh no, that would make sense. Yeah. If you're unarmored, you take 90. So if that's an unarmored player, that means that those 6 bullets did 10 damage. Which, why even have an ability like that in the first place? Like, it did so little damage. So my thought is that it's probably more like that player has armor. The turret busted the armor, took him down to like 60 something or 70 something, and then the 3 classic shots was enough to kill him. So again, it's still either way, it's still not doing that much damage, but it's the fact that it's doing enough where it's giving you a huge advantage. Like imagine on a pistol round, you buy it, you set it up on one side of the site, and then you're on the other side, and you basically crossfire on your own. If they take a 50-50 corner and they shoot at you first, that's probably optimal because the turret's not doing as much damage. But let's say you like barely win and then the turret shoots at you, you're dead. Like you died to Killjoy after the fact, after he put down an ability at the beginning of the round, and you had no say over whether or not he was able to put it down because, he put it down at the beginning and then waited for you, right? That's number 1. Number 2, it's one more thing that you have to like worry about. You have to worry that when you check the corner, you're either clearing that or it's like you have to check every 50-50 corner now because he could set it up in corners where like you don't have to hard clear, and so you like jiggle clear it and you're like, oh, there's the turret, and then he's on the other side. Or he could put it into areas where you have to hard clear, and it's just the fact that it could even activate gives you intel. So you have to think about it in that way too. It's also like a sound cue that you hear. It gives you intel on where someone is. It's obviously seeing someone, so it's shooting at them, or if it breaks, right? That's why sometimes it's better to just leave the Sova Dart there because it denies some information, yada yada yada. Um, so the turret is definitely concerning. We also don't know how much health it has because I hope you can break it. But I'm gonna err on the side of yeah, you can break it, which means that there's like how many shots does it take? Does it take multiple classic shots? Because on pistol round, this thing could be broken. If it takes multiple pistol shots, like the running accuracy is already really good. Um, And again, if you pair Killjoy with like a Cypher, you put 2 traps down, like right here. You have tripwires, you have the camera, you have the turret like in this corner or just like over here to look inside or all the way back, shooting in bursts. You put the cage up, it's still shooting at you. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's a lot of outplay potential. And I think it's the fact that it's just one more thing that you have to worry about that slows down the pace of the game that is concerning to me because it's one more thing that you have to like check off your list. Did I get XYZ? Does the boombot activate on it? Does it shoot boombots? Because that's a boombot counter, and the boombot is really good at clearing out these corners, getting cipher tripwires, right? Like, what's the interaction between those things? We don't know that yet, so it's hard to say. However, just on like the surface, I don't like this idea. And I think that you have to be really careful. It's either going to be so good that it's like broken and it's going to need to be nerfed, or it's going to be so bad that they're going to buff it to the point where it's too good. Or the third option is that it will never be good except in like low level of play, and this character is just never picked at all, which is not what you want to see. Then you're getting into territory like League of Legends, where there's characters that just have 0% pick rates because they're really bad, because if they were good, they would be broken. So, you know, I don't know. That's just my thought on the turret. I don't think it's a good idea. I think Riot's like smoking crack. They think that this is a good idea. If they thought that they could go from Reyna to this, it's just I don't understand what their idea is. And whoever okayed this idea, I don't know. Like, I don't know. 200 years of design experience, I guess, is leaking into the Valorant dev team. So anyways, so the next ability is called the Alarm Bot. The Alarm Bot is probably the second most. I would say the turret is definitely the most controversial ability. The Alarm Bot is my second most controversial ability, I think. Followed by the Nanoswarm and then the ult. I think the ult is fine, realistically. If you can, unless you can't get out of the radius, then I think it's stupid. And then I would put the ult, then turret, then Alarm Bot, then Nanoswarm. However, okay, so let's look at Alarm Bot. So you equip the Alarm Bot and you put it down, and it hunts down enemies who get within a radius of it. And then it explodes when it reaches a target. It does damage, and it makes you vulnerable to double damage from all sources. And you can hold equip if you want to recall the bot. So again, do you have to have line of sight on it, or can you recall it at any point? Well, we don't we don't know. If you can recall it at any point, um, and you can recall the turret, I think that that's just absolutely broken because the Cypher has to go up and has to call, call all of its stuff back. So I think it's going to be more like that. However, so let's take a look. So first things first, this radius is not that big, but if you notice on like Ascent, it covers this and this. So your only avenue into the bomb site is to jump into like the to the generator area, the electrical generator, and go along the side that is closest to the wall, which is like, unless you're going to trigger this thing. And obviously you don't want it to trigger because it has a radius explosion and it makes you vulnerable to more damage. So if there's someone on the site and you trigger it and it explodes on your whole team, they can just like, it can be a spray down. Um, Instead of 4 hits to the body with a phantom, it's 2, which isn't that hard to do. Especially, and if you're like, if you have multiple people there, like on pistols, it'll take 4 ghost shots. Maybe I was thinking about the ghost and I was thinking about the classic. I don't really remember. Anyways, besides the point. So you put it down. Okay. You notice it has a bit of a wind-up time. Oh shit. Bit of a wind-up time. Then it goes invisible. Okay. So that's just like um the the grenade. It goes invisible. And according to the files, you can put it on walls. And it can run vertically down or it can run across the ground. So you could be coming through this choke, checking for tripwires, which can go from these boxes over here over to here. So you have to check for tripwires. And it could be just like on this wall somewhere, and it could just trigger on you and run straight down and then explode. You could put a trap right here, cage, and then it just runs through and explodes while you're in the cage. and then you just shoot through the cage. Like that seems pretty broken. Um, to me. I mean, on the ground you'll get the same thing, but the idea is if it's invisible, you should be able to destroy it. So again, we don't know if when it's on the ground, when it's running at you, if you can destroy it because they don't show it in these clips. However, one thing it does do is it triggers and it pings this person. So it's an info tool and it does damage. So it's like an automatic cipher camera. And again, we don't know if you can destroy it when it's running up at you. We don't know if you can see it very faintly if you're checking for it and then you can kill it before it triggers. However, it then goes off, it explodes, right? And it hits everything. So even you and your allies. So I think that's good because if it just like exploded and it did nothing to you, that'd be like ridiculous. But see here, this is the like fragile, kind of like when you're in Viper's poison. And then it's one classic shot. One. So I want to test something really quickly. So I'm going to go to the practice range, and I'm going to go to the shooting test. Okay. I want to take a look at something. I want to see what a classic shot to the chest, how much damage that does when you're just using a classic on an unarmored opponent. I think the here, let's take a look. If you okay, it doesn't show how much damage it'll do if you have armor now. Yeah, so it'll one-shot you if you're 15 meters with... Okay, so let me go to 20. 140. Okay. Yeah, 156. 56. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't tell me how much damage it's going to do if it doesn't have armor anymore. So yeah, ghost shots will do 30 to unarmored opponents, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then a classic. So the classic does 26 damage. So 3 classic shots from the turret does 78 damage. So that means that the turret is either doing about 30 damage to an unarmored target, or it's doing... What is that, like... It's doing about this. It's doing about 70 damage to an armored target. About that, or a little more for the turret. Okay? So then the alarm bot explodes, and so that means it's the bot is either doing over 60 damage because one classic shot to the chest is 26 damage. So if you're taking double that, what is that like? I haven't been in school for so long. About 52 damage. So it's either doing over a little under half of an unarmored opponent's entire health pool, or if it's an armored opponent, it's doing about 100 damage on explosion. And one classic shot is killing them. Does that not seem broken? That's ridiculous. It's one classic shot. Like, let's take a look at this again. Look at this. That's so much damage, and it's invisible at the start. So, and it's small. It's not like a boombot where you can just like shoot at it while you're moving backwards. You'll have like, obviously, I don't think that it's that big of an issue for high level players to do. But if you're a low leveled player, your aim isn't going to be like that good, and it moves at you pretty fast. Like look at how fast it flies at you. I mean, you can't really tell because the sage walks towards it. This video is so... These videos don't explain anything at all. Riot needs to do a better job of, like, showing this kind of interaction. They need to have, like, a champion spotlight, like, in League, where they have someone talk and have it be like, at armor, with armor, this ability does this much damage. And this debuff lasts this long. But they don't do that. So we're going to have to look at that ourselves, or maybe they'll have it updated inside of their, like, when the agent goes live, it'll be in the practice range, you can like hover over the abilities and see what it does, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it'll say more there. Um, However, this little bot does a lot of damage, regardless of if it's armored or unarmored. And the same thing with the turret. If you're unarmored, it's not doing a lot, but it's still doing a lot, considering the fact that you're unarmored. And then it just means that when you're armored, it's going to be useless. Same thing with this little bot. If you're unarmored, it's doing a lot, but when you're armored, it'll do a decent amount. Um, If these characters are armored, though, it just means that if you're unarmored, you're going to be shredded by these abilities. Like, you'll die from they'll be able to kill you, which is not interactive at all. And the fact that you can put it anywhere, and it goes invisible, and it gives you info is just ridiculous. These abilities also, you have to consider, you have to buy them. So if they're cheap to buy, just think about that. Like, if it's not, like, Sage is about 700, 800, 400. How much is it? It's 400 for the wall. Slows 200. So it's about 800 credits. Am I getting that right? I can't even tell because my settings have me infinite ammo. Okay, I still. Okay, give me a second. I want to check how much Siege actually is. Obviously, you don't pay for your heal. You have 2 slows and a wall. I think the wall is 400, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll go start. Yeah, so it's 600 for Sage. It's 400 and then 2 slows. So it seems like you can only have 1 alarm bot, 1 turret, and then 1 grenade. But these things have to be priced in a way where you can't just have all of them on pistol rounds. Because if they're 200, you can do alarm bot, turret, and armor. So you have armor classic, alarm bot, and turret. Whatever site you're playing, you have every advantage in the world. Just as a fact. And one of those abilities is something that you get for free. So unless they're making it so that you have to buy every ability, I just don't see how this character can be balanced on pistol rounds. Or they're going to have to make everything very expensive. So whatever you get for free, I'm assuming it'll be the grenade, which would make the most amount of sense. Because like Phoenix Grenade, um, it's still huge and you can trigger it. So on defense, it's still like really annoying area denial, and it goes invisible again. So we don't know if you can destroy it. But if it's only 200 credits for the turret and the alarm bot, you could have everything on pistol, right? So it has to be a sort of situation like Sage, like this agent is if this agent needs to be balanced properly, it needs to be really expensive. So it needs to be like 400 credits for the turret or the alarm bot, whichever. I would say 400 for both if I had it my way. Be 400 credits for the alarm bot and 400 credits for the turret. So that way you have to make the decision like Sage, if you're going to buy a really strong ability, you can only get armor afterwards, and you can only have 1. So you have the grenade, and you have the turret and armor. Or you make the turret 500 credits, and you can't do... That way you can't do turret alarm bot, and you can't do turret and armor. But you could do like turret and shorty, or... Yeah, that's all you could really do. So I just like I have a feeling this character is going to come out and it's either going to be too cheap and people are just going to have everything on pistol rounds, or they're going to just be really bad. Either of those situations aren't good because you don't want your new character to be really bad. But you don't want your new character to also be broken and make the game like drastically different. I know that Riot has said that they want their meta to sort of change and adapt on every act. I just think that 2 months is a very short period of time, in my opinion. I think you should try to change it every episode. So 6 months. And I think that's also when they should be resetting ranks. 6 months. Similar to League. Where you have 6 months where your rank is like as is and then it resets. Like a mid-season soft reset or something like that. So that's kind of my opinion. I think the main points from this character is that, for me at least, is number one, they're either going to be too strong or too weak. Number two, if you pair this with a Cypher, like certain bomb sites just aren't accessible. Like Bind B, don't bother going there. Split B, don't bother going there. Ascent A, don't bother going there. There's just going to be too much going on that you'll have to deal with from two characters that don't even need to be at that map in order to deal with like oncoming enemies, because they can trigger abilities and their abilities trigger automatically, and seemingly they can set them up at the start of the round. So it makes the game less interactive. This character makes the game less interactive. It lowers the skill ceiling, and it's the fact that it slows the game down to the point where you're now going to have to be worried about Cypher utility. My headset just turned off because it hadn't heard any music or anything like that. um, so I was saying is it makes it so that you're gonna have to worry about Cypher util, and you're gonna have to worry about um this guy's utility now. And the issue is that there are agents that you can probably pick that can play around these types of character, like this type of character, but you don't see what the other team is picking. So you can't just go and pick like counter pick. It's not possible to counter pick in this game unless you like know for sure. Unless this character is like broken beyond belief and the only way you win is if you play it. And even then, that means that the counter is only giving you a slight edge because they can win through it. So that's kind of my opinion on this character. I think this character, if it's not properly, like if there's not enough counterplay, it's not tuned to be just right, it could really hurt the integrity, like the state of the game. And the fact that Riot decided that this was going to be their next character, it just blows my mind. That this is the next character that they went. They released Reyna, which was innovative and cool, but a duelist, and then they released a Sentinel, which is basically just an information gathering raise. Like everything that he has deals damage, which goes against the core principles of that tweet. Let's see if I can find that tweet. Yeah. To be clear, Project A, shooting matters. You don't kill with abilities. Abilities create tactical opportunities to take the right shot. Characters have abilities that augment their gunplay instead of fighting directly with their abilities. What is this character? What is this character to that philosophy? What is Ray's to that philosophy? Because all I'm seeing from this is that it makes it easier for him to kill you with his gun because it deals damage and it makes them weaker. You don't even have to aim for the head with this character. Obviously, aiming for the head will kill them faster, but it just lowers the skill ceiling. And it triggers without you needing to trigger it, aside from the grenade. And if you pair them with a Cypher, again, the tripwire gets broken, the camera spots someone, you activate it. You put it a little bit past the tripwire, the radius is so large it'll hit in front of the tripwire and behind it. So everyone, everybody's been complaining like Sage is broken, Sage is in every game, Sage has the highest win rate, Sage has the highest pick rate. You know, everybody wants to play Sage, blah blah blah. To me, it's interesting that Riot wouldn't create a new healer for their next character because that's all everybody's ever talked about. is the fact that Sage is in every game, Sage is broken, healing is annoying, blah blah blah. So they add another damaging character, and now to fix that, you either need to create a new healer, which should be in the game, so that Sage just isn't picked all the time, which she is. I am someone who picks her all the time. I see the value in res. I know there are comps that don't run Sage. However, Sage is proving again and again in the right hands to be the definitive pick for a support character. And so you're adding more damage, which means you need another healer, so that Sage just isn't in every game. And even so, there's so many damaging abilities now that Sage is now becoming less useful. 40 seconds of healing is not enough to stop a raise grenade, a boom bot, the nano bot grenade, the alarm bot, the turret. You can't heal everybody. And it just means that, okay, if they pick a Killjoy, I hope we have enough sustain. I hope we have a Reyna. I hope we have a Phoenix. I hope we have a Sage. I hope we have a, you know. So the next character either is going to have to be a healer or it's going to have to be something with a shield. And then it becomes more like Overwatch. Because you'll need a shield in order to block the turret shots, or a shield in order to stop explosions, or a shield in order to do this and that. And then it becomes a meta of, oh, well, we need a shield character, and then we need our support. Then it just becomes Overwatch. It becomes less of a tactical shooter and more of a MOBA. And if that's the direction that they want to go, that's the direction they're going to go. But I think the majority of people that were excited about Project A didn't see it going that way and don't want it to go that way, myself included. So that's my opinion on Killjoy. I think if Riot does the right steps, this character could be okay and will have specializers, but it needs to have a lot of counterplay in order to deal with all of its abilities, because the fact that most of it goes invisible and can be triggered and deals damage and makes you vulnerable, there's just so much going on with this agent that it makes it kind of ridiculous to push into sites where this player and Cypher could be, and even on their own. The fact that they can set up crossfires, information gathering, it's dangerous to put more characters like Cypher into the game, because then you can just set up on a bomb site and let all your util do the work, which is cool, but it makes it less interactive. So I hope that Riot Games is really taking the tweet philosophy into consideration with this character. Even though it clearly isn't, um, I just hope that it's not as bad as it seemingly is right now. That's my opinion. I think that's enough about Killjoy.